Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Investment Club 2021 with your host, Steven, this great city leader for Markham. Just a couple household rules for y'all. It's like the show's a investment discussion format, so you, the audience, are free to jump in, ask questions, share your thoughts. Everything discussed tonight is intended for educational purposes and is not investment advice. Now, before we just begin and get right into the topics, I see we have some more familiar and new faces. We know like Thomas, V, welcome for coming back. Ada is like, I believe, is this the first time you came on the show?
This is the first time I am here, but
Nice.
I have a substantial amount of money that I got for Christmas, and it's meant for investment. So I'm here to see what I can learn to put it to work.
Awesome.
It's 10 grand.
Well, that's a pretty good start.
Nice. Want to get married? No, just kidding. Now that ain't enough.
I'm sure I'm getting another 10 grand this year because I think it's part of my inheritance from my dad. I'm pretty sure
Nice.
it is.
Yeah.
Pretty certain.
Sorry, Aiden. I'm hopelessly allergic to marriage. So
Oh, and just out of curiosity, Aiden, so I guess where have you been? Have you been doing any investing before? Or have you invested into stocks, bonds?
I did GIC before. I had GIC account long time ago when I was a teenager. I also had RRSPs for a few years, but my dad suggested I pull everything out of the RRSP. He didn't like them. So I pulled everything out of the RRSP. I invested $1,000 to an RRSP, and by the time I was done, I think I had like $3 grand in my RRSP. But yeah,
Oh, okay, that's pretty good actually. I mean, at least you got somewhere to start. And RSPs, just a little reminder, it's a really great way. You could say if you grow it large enough, you don't pay taxes until the back end. And that's usually when you retire in a lower tax bracket. And just tends to mean the government says, I'm willing to take less as long as it pays the bills, keeps you living happily. It's like that's how it's intended to work. And of course, we have Thomas, who kind of snuck in right at the end. Just wondering if you've been looking to anything of late, Thomas.
I have been pretty quiet, Stephen. I'm not. I wish I'd like to say I had the walking around money to just have fun on the market, but I don't. So I'm just sitting back, learning and listening, and when the time comes, we'll see what it is. Personally, for me, if I had the choice, though, I don't know about I've never been a fan of the stock market. It's not that I'm not a fan. I think I understand different things of investment better. I think I would put my money more into real estate than I would investment in the stock in the market, just because I understand real estate a little bit better. I'm not an agent or a huge investor, but I just seem to, I don't know, I just have a better affinity for it than I do the market. So
that's perfectly fine, Thomas. I mean, you're essentially investing where you're most comfortable, and that's
exactly right. So
that's where we're really trying to help people out, give them different pointers, ideas, and different aspects of investing. Because essentially the stock market's really a giant conglomeration of different sectors, whether you're mentioning real estate, whether it's mutual fund insurance companies, banks, different sectors. It's literally just a giant trading platform. You can buy and sell ownerships of different companies, essentially. Yep, and that's just how it is there. And
the only other thing I'd like to be, I wish I knew more of, is crypto.
Yep.
Just because being a tech guy, I wish I knew more about it and understood how it all worked. But I think that's going to be, I got to find the time to sit down and just really wrap my head around it, because it's just, that's one thing I feel like I didn't jump on the train fast enough, and now I'm kind of out of the water there. So.
I totally get you, because when I started that off back in over a decade ago, when I threw into buying the banks, because this was funny, in the news article, it just came up to say, it's like the Canadian banks are some of the best in the industry. It's like they didn't have to go through all this bailout proceeds compared to the American counterparts.
Right.
That was the only reason I took some money as I earned, and I'm just throw into TD Bank. It's over the past, you could say, decade. Well, the couple of years I owned it, it did go up because the trend was in a recovery. It was like, okay. So that was more of like the starting end, just to go like, oh, okay, this is what investing is. You make a couple thousand, like, yeah, that's great. It's nothing crazy, but it was more of like you get your feet wet. That helps you then. It suddenly starts answering all these sorts of questions and even pokes even more questions in your mind. It's like, what is this company doing? What are they doing in the background? I don't know.
Right.
You're literally almost, it just gives you an answer, asks a question. It literally just feeds on itself, literally.
No, you're absolutely right. And actually, I mean, when I was younger, I did do some investing. Like my brother and I just kind of, we were living at home. We had a lot more money to burn, so we did. So we did Nortel. That's how that worked out. We actually, he wanted to, and I was going to jump on the same train anyways. We wanted to invest into BlackBerry when it's still a penny stock. And we had spoken to his brother-in-law, who's in banking and financing and everything. Wasn't really investment, but he did investing himself on the side, and he did, and he's like, or sorry, his godbrother, sorry, I don't know what the hell I was thinking there. But he's like, you know what? Don't bother. It's never going to go anywhere. And because again, for two reasons. Lazaridis was Greek and he was from Windsor. So the argument is a Greek from Windsor is never going to amount to anything. So who cares, right? Yeah. Well, we still I still kind of kick myself for actually taking that advice. Like I love his godbrother to death, but every time I look at him, I think about that, and there's still a tiny bit of hostility towards him about that, because like, son.
I feel you on that one.
At 16, I could have been rolling in the money at 16. So, so I mean, and that's just it. I mean, that's my brother had invested in Ballard Energy at one point, but he bailed out then, because I mean, you're talking decade ago kind of thing more. Which now it would have been great if if he still had that, I guess, because they're making some headlines because they're actually working with other some of the companies just to produce the batteries and power cells for the EV vehicles that are coming out. So,
oh man, it's literally you're just speaking like to the voice of like vision, like literally about when you're buying a company, you're really looking at like, what will it do in the future? And it's almost as though if you just had that simple idea, like, oh, we're going to make battery cars.
Exactly,
and then,
right.
And then you're there, like, I got to hold on to it. I can believe in the vision. I'm going to do it. As like, even if it's just $100, it will make me something.
Oh, absolutely. That's just it, right? I mean, sometimes you have to play that gamble. You have to understand what the company does, and you have to for lack of better terms, you got to be a bit of a fortune teller, right? So of your own magnitude, to say, okay, like, what can you see this company doing in 10 years from now, right? So
yep, you're absolutely right on that. I just want to jump to V.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, that's fine. Just to see how she's doing. Have you done any investing in the market before, or had any experiences on this front?
You mean Victoria?
Or Victoria, sorry. Yeah. Okay, she must be a little busy, so we'll just go on to the next. Ivan, I know you're more into that crypto guy, the guy who wants.
I'm looking at the crypto markets with fear and trepidation. They are very volatile. I just don't know what's happening. It seems as if they're kind of holding their own right now, up and down, but we're not seeing any major gains. We're not seeing any major losses right now. So I just don't know which way they're going to go. It's way too volatile for me. One man can say something, and it sends all of your earnings into. I mean, if you bought a Bitcoin at 50,000, today's a bad day, right?
Yeah, you could feel it burn right there because it's down to all the way 37,000 right now. Like, that's not what I want to see.
It hurts. Especially if it's the last money that you had, and you think, oh man, this is going to go to $100, 100,000. It doesn't.
Oh man, you'd literally be like, oh my God, do I hold or do I go? It's like, oh, maybe I just take a little profit and just go, okay, I'm happy. I made something. At least I didn't lose it all.
Your mind is, do I tell my wife? Do I tell her what I just did?
Victoria, I know you were trying to jump in just earlier. It's like, so just to rephrase the question, Have you been doing any investing before or had experiences in this front?
Oh, hi there. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I was downstairs listening to you, but I couldn't answer you. No, I'm trying to get into the market,
Okay.
and I just want to learn. And if you can direct me how and what steps I have to take, I
Mhm.
will really appreciate it because, like, I'm a little bit. I don't know what tools to start, to
Mhm.
look, to use, and how to invest. What company I need to look into more. I know, like in pandemic time, sport has been evolving. Like machinery for sport has been evolving, and other industry. And then I heard that nowadays a company picking up again, like airlines and other companies, industry, tourist industry picking up. So I was wondering if you can direct me where I need to look into and how can I invest with the minimum amount of money and just start it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Like I don't want to go crazy, but I want kind of strategic move if
Mhm.
this is possible.
Okay. You're so if you're looking in that front, for most beginners, I've actually seen besides actual investing in stocks as as yourself, most of most of the beginners, even when I started, I actually had a financial advisor to start me off. So the reason was when you have these investment funds run by professionals, they basically help you buy and sell because they've been in the market, they've had years, some even decades of experience. They help individuals invest for the long term, and you're essentially think of it as you're thrown into a hands-off approach to say, okay, you're someone's managing it for me first, and then at the same time you're also building that knowledge pool to how can I invest on my own, because ultimately what happens is if let's say you just jumped in, let's say airlines was the hit thing right now, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I should jump right in, then then I look at it from a company standpoint. Is this company worth the price you're paying right now? That's always the biggest question. Is it, are you paying too much or are you paying too little? Everybody else always wants to pay the least amount, or literally, preferably even free. You say, I own this company. It's I didn't have to pay for it, and that's always about, they call it fundamental analysis. It's like, is this company fundamentally making money or is it not making money? And where is it in the global stage? Is it position? Is it in a great position or is it in a bad position? As a
But where's a
starter.
good place though for her to start? Let's say
Mm.
for the tech, like how does she get access to the markets? Is it through Wealth Simple or is it through the TD Bank? Like where do you recommend? And with that question, I'm going to jump off because I got to go. You know,
Okay.
my mommy's calling me, so I got to go. But when I get home, okay, as long as I'm not grounded, I'll talk to you guys.
All right. I
Standing
will.
in a corner.
Awesome. so, so just since Victoria, you're asking about that, we're just going to also pull up Air Canada because you were asking about it. So we're just going to pull this up to add on to it. Just going to let this run. Okay. So let's look at Air Canada, for example, today. And I'll just look over the past year, see what's happening. And of course, you've noticed, let's say if you're just looking at the charts to start, you go, okay, this back when the pandemic, we all understand airlines weren't doing well. The stocks had literally dropped substantially. You could say from November is like, okay, here's 2019. It's like, it was at its high. It was like, great. And then, of course, pandemic sinks in. It's a fraction of its value. Instead of $50, it's now 15 around. And now, of course, as you can see, progress over time, it's gradually ticking back upwards. It hasn't fully recovered, but it's slowly getting there. Now, that's just from a chart standpoint. You're like, okay, maybe, let's say you looked in the future and said, okay, in 5 years, airlines are going to do well. Like Air Canada is going to do well. Let's say that was your thesis. Then you're like, okay, it seems cheap to buy now at 27. The future may go back to $50. Now, I had read this up before with airline industries, and this came from news sources I've read over different news articles over the past, and even other professionals who are much more dived into analyzing companies. They look at airlines are generally a very cyclical business. So when they mean cyclical, meaning there are times of good and bad. And what happens is airlines generally do well when you'd say the economy or the market is doing well, as in everybody's optimistic, everybody thinks they're going well, things are going good. That's typically when airlines do good, because if all of you had a lot of cash on hand or a lot of pocket change, how many of you don't want to go? How many of you actually want to go on a vacation? Just to go to the Bahamas, maybe to Europe, maybe to Asia, just to see the world? I'm sure a lot of you would say, like, yeah, I just love to just go there and see what it's like, just to experience it. Of course, that's how airlines are there for you. They're there to take you from A to B and back. So because of that cyclicality, it's now you as an investor, it's about preference. Are you someone who can withstand these massive swings because it's a cyclical business? Or are you someone who says, that's a little bit too volatile for me. I want something a little more, it's a, I call it, a little less volatile, something a little more safe to start as a place to invest as a company. Or in some cases, for some of those who want to start without putting all their eggs into one company, there's called exchange traded funds. And I'm going to pull this one up. All of you may have heard about before. I'm just going to use the S&P 500 as a reference. So yes, the price of it is high, but what this actually represents is, let's say, the top 500 companies in America, as an example. So these 500 companies are embedded into this investment fund, which means this fund actually owns little tiny pieces of all those companies. They essentially saying, okay, if one company doesn't do well, well, that's okay. It gets dropped off. In these basket of 500 of the best companies, the good ones stay and the bad ones get thrown out. That's typically what happens. So when you looked at an example would be ExxonMobil, a giant oil company. It used to be part of the S&P 500, but due to the low oil prices, they got kicked out of the S&P because of its performance. And if you were an investor, you're like, okay, so if Exxon's gone, that's fine, because on the S&P 500, the value of this trust doesn't actually go down as in, oh, you lost money, because it's like 1 in 500 companies got thrown out. At the same time, the trust, what they do is they rebuy the new companies that are added in to this trust. So imagine they're essentially professional traders working for you. And that's what an exchange traded fund is usually meant for. It's a basket of companies. There are different ones as well for different sectors. The one let's say I'll use as an example, I've typically followed is the GDX, because I'm more into the mining sector. That's where I focus most of my time looking into. So the GDX itself is a basket of major mining companies. You can look, so some of the ones you may have heard by name, such as Barrick Gold Corp, Newmont Gold Corp, Pan American Silver. These are some of the largest gold and silver mining companies in the world. So they're embedded into this exchange traded fund. And of course, the price of this fund goes up and down based on the value of those companies, which of late, they've been trending higher, because what happens with gold mining companies, they tend to go up in price during the summertime. This has been a trend for many, many years. It's just typically around the July, August time. It tends to seem to be near their peak point. And then it starts tapering off in terms of price. So right now, what we're looking at, there's possible speculation. Individuals, besides the economy, they're looking at this saying, okay, this is the time when these companies are doing well. Some are speculating and they're buying into these companies. Fundamentally, some of these companies actually do make a lot of money because the price of gold's been going up. And that's also what affects these companies directly, is if the gold price goes up, they make more profits. If the price of gold goes down, the value of these companies go down. Victoria, do you have any questions or things you have questions of?
No, I'm just listening. So I understand that am I right that you thinking that for the beginner it's better to invest in the funds, in a trust?
Yeah, or you can call it, and this is what I'm going to quote basically from Warren Buffett. When he was looking at investors investing into his company, which I'm just going to basically bring up his company here for his stock B as an example. So Warren Buffett's one of those well-known investment legends that's delivered great, tremendous value for investors for many decades, actually even 5 decades at this point. So he was saying, okay, in the past couple of years in his newsletter, he was saying, okay, I may not be able to outperform the S&P 500 index. It's like if you as investors find I can't deliver that value the entire index can, then you can look at buying an index fund, which the one I was mentioning before, the SPY, which was the S&P 500 trust. If let's say the Canadian or the US one's not your flavor, there's ones in the Canadian one as well, equivalent, which let's say target the Canadian index, like which on the top, towards the top left here, it says the S&P TSX, which is the Canadian index. And the S&P 500 is one of them for the United States. Now, there was also one I prepared a little special on because we know some of you may have seen before with AMC. Some of you may have heard of this on the news before about entertainment halls. So they're essentially you essentially could call them you could say a Cineplex business. They basically provides goods and services on movies. And you've seen of late, you've seen it really just starting to skyrocket. Like literally, it's just been going massively really high. So I'm just curious, Catherine, have you seen this on the news before recently with AMC?
Yeah, I actually heard that the main guy was dumping it because it had been artificially inflated from the Reddit group.
Yes, you're actually right. It was literally they essentially sold shares to an investment firm. And this investment firm just looked at this and they just said one thing, like, this company is overvalued. They just took their stock, they bought it like low 20s, and they literally just threw whatever the price was, they just sold it and made a profit off of it. But even then, you still had all these from Reddit who actually still bought this company. Now, if I looked at AMC as a company before from the fundamental side, before and where it is today, nothing's really has changed. When you look at it at COVID, we still had lockdowns in place. Yes, there's been gradual openings, but imagine this company has been sitting there kind of like losing money every single day. Literally, it's never really made much money since the pandemic. And it just so happens that people just found, oh, this looks like a cheap stock. The Redditors did no fundamental analysis. Is this company profitable or not? And they just bought it. So what typically tends to happen when you see it skyrocket all the way up to the $62 range is it comes all the way back down. And a simple example of that, what happens is, I'm sure you may have heard of this before, which is Bitcoin. So we're going to pull this a little bit further, and you'll notice like Bitcoin was similar with AMC. It went skyrocket all the way up to almost 60,000 US dollars, and now it just started to drop over the past few weeks. So that's what can potentially happen with AMC, because you just get almost like a short squeeze where there's a lot of, you could say, traders who want to buy it, but there's just not a lot of volume for sale. So that effectively causes all the bidding prices go up, essentially affected the bidding wars. And that's what skyrockets the price going up. And when that gets exhausted, there's no more desperate buyers to get in, it tends to come back down. And that's where you get this wash. Literally, there's massive drops that happens afterwards because there's no more buyers. And of course, another one we've all been familiar with. Yep.
Sorry, Stephen, before you move on.
Yep.
So wouldn't most people then go, okay, let's wait? Like, the buyers would go, okay, how much of a wash is this going to be? And when do we make the turnaround and start buying again? Right?
You're absolutely right. It's a really tricky question because I'll be honest, some companies, when they experience this massive hype and then it comes back down, they could be dead in the waters for years, like sometimes even decades, just literally back to where it originally was, and it just kept gradually trending lower and lower and lower without any real movements. And then you have other cases where it just drops, and then maybe a couple months later, oh, now it's starting to skyrocket again all of a sudden. So that really comes down to, you could say, the perception of value. So when I talk about that, it's about psychology, where if people start to see the price of these stocks tend to trend higher, the first thing that comes to mind is, oh, it's going up, I don't want to miss. It's literally that fear of missing out. And that causes, let's say, all the bunch of Redditors, one piles in, the next piles in, the other piles, and then you get all these different investment firms like, hey, this thing's moving up, I want a piece of this action. They're piling in. And literally that's what brings these huge gains out of nowhere. Even though you look at, there's no news, like nothing's happened to this company. It hasn't really gone crazy yet. Why is it going up? And that tends to be the typical fear of missing out of causing it. Because usually if a company does go up in price or down, it really makes sense if there was actual news, like something happened to the company. Either it performed a great, let's say, takeover, or a company had huge losses, that makes sense it would go down in value.
So like with this Bitcoin, I know that it almost seems as if when Musk tweeted it, it went up and everyone kind of jumped in and was scrambling to get some. And then short, like he didn't say anything for probably like a month. And then he, I guess there was this big spill about everyone wanted to buy these Tesla cars with their Bitcoin and then realized that they couldn't. And then it just seems like it started dropping after that news came out.
You could definitely say Elon Musk may have played a role, saying, okay, we're not taking Bitcoin for Tesla cars anymore.
Right.
Even though he said in his company they still own the Bitcoin they initially invested, about $1.5 billion.
Yeah, so it's gonna hurt him even having this little bit of loss.
Absolutely. It was just one of those, it's almost, you could definitely say it was really a huge hype. Everybody was jumping to it. And I've seen this countless times. There's always, you think of all these news articles out there. They come up to you, you read about them, they go, oh, this company could go up. Oh, this company could go. Oh, this company could go up. You're asking yourself, like, but why? It's literally, that's always the first question that just comes of, why does it have to go up? Why can't it go down? Why can't I buy this at a discount? And there's very likely positions where those individuals actually have a stake already in the company, and they're just trying to make you the greater fool of buying at a higher price.
Right.
That's all they're trying to do. And that's why I actually tend to stay away from the news when something good happens. I'm more happy to see something when something bad happens. And I'll actually pull up a company that actually had a recent problem. just going to bring it up. Just gonna send, this company that recently came out in the news, Centerra Gold. So just pull out a little further just to show you guys what's been going on with it. So yeah, so you could say for the past, when we look at from the gold side, the gold price, it for the past, it's a couple of years before COVID, really nothing's really happened with with the price. That's why the company really wasn't doing very well. It was just mooching along, nothing major happens.
So is that normal for most companies where it just kind of, lingers along until something actually happens and, there's a news story? Because since we started this, I've been given a lot of stock codes and I've looked through probably hundreds now. And a lot of them are, it's funny. I think, why would you give me this when it looks like it's going down or it's just kind of flat where it's been for like 5 years?
Yep. So let's say if we take Centerra, for example, let's say if we just took back to April 2019. So we forget what we had right after. We just looked at it from the past, right? Just from April 2019. Right. Of course, at that time, let's say David just came up to you and said, "Hey, you should look into this company. It looks great. It's only $682." It's like, and you're thinking, what? But nothing's really happened to it. Why would I want to buy this company? What is it? But you can look at the names. Like, yeah, okay, they produce gold, but why would I want to buy this company? And the only reason people buy gold companies, it's mainly tied to the price of gold, and you could say because of the market, the economic cycle. So most of the time when times are great, there's no problems, people's like, it's similar to insurance. When there's nothing wrong, everything's going smooth sailing, you don't buy gold, you don't buy insurance. You're like, everything's going well. I can drive my car, I'm going to the grocery store, nothing's happening. Yeah, I don't need insurance. And then one day, of course, you go, as like somebody threw a brick onto my windshield and now it's damaged. I have to go and get it fixed. Now I need insurance. That's where gold is in the same situation, because in times of panic, it's when people actually buy into these gold. And now we're looking after 2019, you've noticed the price of it's trickled down from the high of almost, let's say $17 in August 2020. And it's been sliding all the way down to around $10 right now, Teresa. Now, one of the things that, with this company. Now, of course, it does pay a little dividend, which is like, okay, it's nice. You get a little bit of payment just to own it. Now, one of the recent developments with this company we'll bring up here in the past of recent. So this sudden drop from $12 down to $8.40. So the reason this recent drop occurred was because it had a gold asset in a location called Kyrgyzstan. And of course, most of you go, where on earth is that? So we're going to bring up trusty Google Map. And I'm hoping I won't butcher typing the name out here, because it is.
It is in a very volatile area of the world.
You're absolutely right. And we're just going to grab Google Maps over here. Okay. And everybody's able to see the Google Maps. I just want to make sure everybody can see it.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I can pronounce most of the words, but
okay, so it'll gradually show up. So when I actually had to Google this personally as well before I had to go on the show, I'd actually go, where on earth is Kyrgyzstan? And now the only way I remember is like, oh, it's just west of China. Okay, great. Now I know. It's literally right over here in the middle. You can see it's Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan. I was like, okay, forget those. I'll just remember just west of China. I was like, one of those little provinces, little states. I was like, okay. So this is where they've been operating a mine in this country. what's funny of recent, and the speculation comes down to the price of gold, because it's been going up from $1,300-$1,400 in the past, and it's over, well, today around $1,900 an ounce. So it's been $500 jump is pretty high. Now in this country, what had happened a month ago, the government had passed legislation to nationalize the gold mine Centerra, the company was owning. But the irony is Centerra actually had been operating that gold mine for over 17 years prior. All of a sudden now they said, oh, by the way, I know you're a foreign company in my lands and we approved you can have this gold mine. Well, guess what? We want it back. I was like, ouch, that really hurts. Now, diving a little deeper into this company, because looking on its website, Centerra actually has about a 10% ownership is from the government. So you could literally say the government does have a stake in this company. It does get profits from the company. If, let's say, the company made $500 million, 10% of that goes to Kyrgyzstan, the government itself, as a form of think of it as a royalty payment. And they take that money and of course spend it on the country, infrastructure, you name it, whichever needs they need for its citizens. So because they had this recently taken out, and of course right now they're in the United States court disputing this asset, because Centerra is saying, well, this is unfair. This government literally just went and nationalized and just cut off and saying, okay, it's not yours anymore, it's mine. And that was why this huge drop came in. So what I'm trying to point out, the significance of it is, when you operate a company in foreign jurisdictions, even if it's the United States or Canada, although North America, they're less prone to just take it from you without good reason. But when you operate in any country, you have to understand the government is always king. They're always the platform. They make the rules for everything. If they want to kick you off, they can kick you off. No ifs or buts about it. It's like it's like you literally have to go. If Centerra was, let's say, holding this mine, there's not much they can do about it. That's literally how the game is played. That's why when you're investing into companies, and let's say someone had just given you the advice, oh, let's say buy Centerra Gold. This company was great prior. Let's say, just to kind of like add on to Teresa's question from earlier, where this was like dead as a whistle and before the spike. Now, I'm just out of curiosity for Teresa, if you were looking at this company and let's say someone just recommended it and said, oh, this is going to skyrocket, and let's say out of the luck of it, you did earn a nice profit from, let's say it went from 682 and it jumped to 11 bucks at the time, and let's say you sold it. Then when it comes back down, now I'm out of curiosity, would you have bought into the company again?
Yeah, for sure. Because I would feel like I actually made something, right? So
Yep.
I would want to stay. Unless something came through in their news, started really being negative.
Yep, that makes sense. And that's where, let's say if you asked me if I were to buy this, even without the chart, I would have said no for me. It's too risky for my taste. And I would be, for one reason, I would not have invested in it, was because it was in a jurisdiction I wasn't comfortable with. That was literally the first thing I look at. Well, it's a little unfair, but I'm just pointing out, like, if you're an investor and you're looking into a specific sector, this is what's really you call doing your homework about a company. You look at these companies, there's all these bunch of it, like there's many companies in different sectors. And it's really about, like, how can you guarantee this company's where it's operating, it won't lose its license, or it won't get kicked out of the country, it won't essentially lose money, besides the efficiencies it can deliver to actually bring profits in. So that's where you could say where you want to go in jurisdictions is a very important factor, even if it's simply a tech company. I remember back in, well, before, this may have been in the early 2000s or post after 2010, I remember Google was actually in China. Same thing, they were a Google search engine company. Baidu was I just want to pull up that company just to show you this company here, Baidu, just as a reference. So Baidu was the same thing as Google. They were just a search engine company. Now, the Chinese government wasn't fond of how they saw Google as a potential threat, as a counterintelligence from the United States government to snoop in what China's doing. And eventually, once Baidu had built up, you say, a bit of core competence, they were able to compete a bit. They didn't have a huge market share. They literally just, essentially over time, they just forced Google out of the country, and Baidu essentially took majority of the market share for the search engine business, and especially they sell ads, just like Google. And that's where you could say it's all great if companies are very innovative, they can make you a lot of money, but I always look for a long-term perspective is, where's this company situated and is it worth investing into it? Because I'm always afraid like this company is going to get eaten up or gets kicked out from where it's operating and making all these profits. And
in other words, if you're going to buy a foreign, somebody who has a foreign property, make sure it's that government or they operate in that country.
Mm-hmm. And just to add to Catherine's side, you're trusting the government itself. They will actually follow the rule of law. They'll just as you'd say the United States and Canada, for example, you're very likely they're not going to come up to you and say, hey, Catherine, that condo you own, well, we're going to nationalize it. It's very unlikely they're going to come up to you and do that because they adhere to the rule of law.
Right.
Same rules as you and I follow. Yep. Oh, pardon?
I was just going to say it's like Cuba in the 21st century.
Oh God. It's just one of those things that I just wanted to emphasize on this tonight just for people, because when I was looking at Centerra Gold, I was like, oh, why did it drop? I was like thinking this was nice and tasty. And then it was like, oh no, this is a jurisdiction problem. I don't want to touch this. and it's just the mindset and experience that comes down to when you're an investor. It's always that due diligence is the most, I can't stress it out. It's like literally the thing that will make or break.
So can I ask a question then, please?
Mm-hmm.
So you're pretty experienced, so going on Yahoo Finance is okay. But if like Victoria and I haven't jumped in the market yet either, do you recommend then we stay on a platform when we're trading of a bank, or can we go to like a Simple or one of those?
Okay.
What's going to give us the tools to learn?
Okay. That's if you're looking for tools, from what I remember. If we look at tools, I would put it, so if you look at the banks, Simple, for example, they're essentially a trading platform.
Right.
That's all I typically see them. If we're taking it one step further and saying, okay, I know how to buy and sell now companies, and I want to understand, okay, let's say look at specific companies to see if it's worth investing into. Those, I would say, put those as fun projects for yourself, just to see, just dabble in it as a starter. So the reason when you invest in the platforms, let's say take TD Bank, for example, or Wealthsimple, and you bought the exchange traded funds, which it's a group of companies, and I'll just use.
Is Wealthsimple a bank, or is it just a discount brokerage?
It's essentially a discount brokerage and they do have add-on services as well. It's just funny that I've never actually used any of their add-on services, because I normally went and stuck with TD Bank it was just because it's across the street from me.
So, do you have tools that you like? I've not used any of it or that. Would they have tools that like these series that you're looking up in all different places? Would they have them in one place for you?
Okay. So you're looking for a platform that will offer, let's say, charts, for example. And yep, Catherine, keep going.
Oh no, like an education. So, like,
Oh, okay.
you know,
Okay.
you're able to go through this Yahoo, and I know there's Bloomberg and there's Motley Crue and or Motley Fool. Sorry,
Yeah.
that's a band.
Yep. Yep.
So where can I and you need trusted information as well, right? It's not like you're going to take your stock infos from Wikipedia or something. So
okay, now this may be a little more for a little bit advanced.
Not somebody your level.
Okay, for the basics and where they can learn a bit of education. From what I know off TD Bank, because I've had messages, they sent messages before to me. They actually have, I'd call it, every month they typically have educational sessions. And effectively what they do is on the platform itself, they host these webinars. It's like, okay, let's say people just wanted to understand how to use the tools they have to offer, how to use the charts, the news section, or let's say if you're trading contracts, which that's a little more advanced. That's where usually that's a place to start, especially when you're talking to your platforms. You can even ask them, let's take, well, simple, if you've been using them, just to call up customers if they even have any educational sessions, just so you can understand a little more of what's going on, how to use it, and really utilize all the useful data they can offer.
So you're saying that typically a traditional bank that we know for CIBC, RBC, TD, and I guess Scotiabank, right?
Yeah.
They've typically got that package deal, and that's why you're paying $10 a trade.
Yes, they effectively, you think of the banker saying all these little things, we're just adding it all together. And plus, if they have, let's say, millions of traders on the platform, it's guaranteed all the ones who are experienced on it, they have no problem. They know they'll make money off them per transactions. And then for all the starters who are just trying it out and really want to understand what's going on, that's why they're bringing those webinar sessions, just so you can just attend and say, okay, let's see if we can help you out, give you a bit of info, a little dabble introductory, just so you can feel comfortable. Okay, this is what you have to offer, and help me out to understand how to use your tools effectively.
Yeah, because I found some of the articles I would read, I would go, okay, but what does that mean? Like,
okay,
right? So,
I'm just even wondering, do you even have an example, just so you can just throw?
No, I think not Motley Fool, because they don't give you much, right? They give you like a paragraph and then go into their selling pitch. But you know, I was reading one, and I think it was off Simple. It was just, you know, it talked about the company and where it's been, and what they think they're going to do. And it's like, okay, what's the next? Like the next shoe didn't drop. Like,
okay, yep, that makes sense. They literally just left you to hang, and they're expecting you may just jump in and buy the company.
Do the banks do that, or are they more like, this is a volatile, or, you know, just be aware this has got foreign entities, or, you know, are those platforms more reliable for their information, or?
Okay.
I find the Monty Fool is they're just trying to sell their list and get you on a newsletter rotation. And once you sign up for one, you get hundreds of emails like a day. It's ridiculous. I already signed up. So they inundate you, and all they want you to do is buy their monthly subscription in order to tell you what for. And they have subscriptions, up the wazoo. So you could, join a gazillion of their subscriptions and still get emails list. But a few of the other ones I find are pretty decent. But I know that since we've been talking, usually Stephen will say, just go and look up, news articles on the actual company. And then it'll give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then you can have a little bit better idea of what that company's doing, instead of looking for news articles first on what companies are doing, because like even for here, Yahoo Finance has been really cool, because it does go into quite a bit of detail when you go through like historical data and stuff. But I wouldn't follow some of those out there.
Yeah, well, that's it. Like even Bloomberg, unless you buy their subscription, you get 2 lines.
Yeah, exactly.
And nothing from it. But, for $199 a year, you can see the rest of the lines. Like,
yeah. And it's like, find out the next top, stocks that are going to go through the roof. Yeah, well, tell me, and, don't make me have to pay for every subscription you have.
Yeah.
That's actually right.
That's helpful.
And I was just to add this quickly for all of you that are still here, because I was talking about Centerra Gold before. What I was going to also point out is jumping right onto the website, and you're saying, okay, I'm looking for news. Let's say you just have somebody in Motley Fool just recommended the company just for kicks.
Yeah.
And you're going like, okay, I got the company, and the first thing I want to do is like, okay, thanks, Motley. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm just going to jump to the website and see what's really going on with this company.
Okay.
So this at least gives you an idea when you look at this and say, just looking from the pictures, you're like, okay, looks like they're a mining company. It's like, okay, they got some operations in Turkey. It looks like they're making some developments in BC. So it's at least that just gives you a highlight. Is this you could say a company or sector you're interested in, just to start the ball.
Okay.
And let's say you looked at this saying, oh, mining company's not really my thing. It's like maybe let's say a company that's such as Procter and Gamble, which sells toothpaste. You're like, oh, okay, I'm more comfortable with a toothpaste company because it's not going to go bankrupt and everybody will buy toothpaste.
Definitely.
And that's just you'd say that's just the very beginning for most people, just to try it out. And the more advanced, I would say there are government websites or government databases that store all the past, you could say, filings from companies. So for the Canadian version, which I showed to Teresa on one of the shows before, when she was the only one, she got the royal treatment, literally.
I did.
It's like this website called CDAR. This is the Canadian version for all the companies who are filed on the TSX and the Venture. All of those companies are listed in this search database section. And this is where you can search up companies about past filings, what's been going on from the earnings they've had to any news reports. And I'm just going to pull up Centerra as an example for this. Centerra Gold. And so what I typically try to do is, you'll see based on the data filing, it's all over the place. So I was like, oh, okay, click Centerra. And then I go to the bottom and I was like, okay, view this company's documents. And then it turns everything into chronological order. And this is where sometimes, even if dabbling into a company, but just after the website, I was like, okay, I want to look at filings. And of course, because I've been doing this a little longer, I always look at their financial statements. So on the May 11th, where it's MD&A, and the one below, that's literally their financial statements for every 3 months.
Oh, okay.
Because I have to look at this and just to grab a feel to say, well, okay, is this company lying to me? Because what happens is, this happens a lot in American companies. if bad things happen or they've done some financing deals or the way they structure things aren't so glamorous, they're always going to put it to the back of the pages. And that's how, for most investors, you'll look at, oh, the company's did a web conference, everything's going well, you're happy about it, you're like, oh, I'm loving where the direction the company's going. And then all the bad things, they stick into the financial earnings and they stick it to the back. And it literally takes practice, because when I started reading these documents, I had no training from anyone whatsoever. I had to figure this out all on my own, digging into the terms, what it's trying to tell me, what is this company doing. And literally, I had to search for mentors who actually are experts in this field to get an idea of like, okay, this is what it means for this company. And for the mining sector, particularly the person I follow is Rick Rule. He's like a legend in the mining industry as an investor, speculator, and it's like his wealth speaks for itself. And that's how he's been going on YouTube, and you can listen to some of the interviews he's done with other channels. I'll tell you first and foremost, he's more of a very technical guy, and how to put it, he's very well spoken with his words. Mm-hmm. And the reason when I listen to him and gravitate toward, because he may send you he may express one sentence, but that whole sentence carries a huge amount of meaning. It's maybe it's just me, because I'm just listening to it and I'm understanding him at a deeper level. Like, I know what you're talking, brother. I feel you.
Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah, that's my hope. It will help you guys out. And that's just a little glimpse of my little daily routines, digging around, you're literally looking for people who are successful in the industries. And they tend to be the ones, if they perform philanthropy, they like for Rick Roll, he's been saying like he's 68 right now. So he's willing to give out tips, ideas about like mining companies. Here's how the rules of the game work. And he goes on a little more, you say, broader spectrum than going specifics, because he knows he assumes like a lot of the audience aren't experienced at all, and they're just dabbling, curious, want to find a little more. And it's probably just how my brain's wired, because I have a little bit of sliver of Elon's brain stuck in my head. And it's just like this, all these little technical detail things just start spinning in my head. I'm like thinking at a deeper level, like, okay, I understand where he's coming from. Like, oh, those are good lessons. Now I know what not to do in the stock market.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That last one was truly a gold nugget. Thanks.
Oh, and I hope that helps all of you, especially Thomas, Victoria, Teresa, Aiden, who's just getting into investing, because that's really how I started. I just literally said, I'm not going to ask anybody. I'm just going to go and talk and just listen to the people who have lots of money, because if they're clearly doing something right, then I'm not.
Yeah, true enough.
And on that, now I know we're a little bit over time. I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight. Hope you enjoyed this lovely session with Stephen, the host. and of course, tomorrow we have Tech Talk with Catherine Davies at 9:30. So Catherine, what's the subject or what's the topic for tomorrow?
We're going to be actually talking the difference between solid state batteries and lithium ions. And it's a huge development for EV, right? So.
Cool. That's one. Oh, yep, Teresa, you had something?
Yeah, that'll be exciting.
Yeah, I know it doesn't sound very exciting, but it actually was quite, when I started doing the research, I went, oh, this is a miracle. Yet it's been around.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Nobody just cared before, right? So
that's right. Everyone was in oil and gas, right? So
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Ignoring it. But it's cool stuff.
Awesome.
I apologize. Can I ask you a question, guys? Where can I know this is recorded, but where can I take the videos? Where can I watch the videos?
Rewatching? Teresa, is there a place?
They should be on, most of them should be on This Great City. I don't believe all of them are up, but all the ones that have been revisited and edited, they're all on This Great City.
Yeah.
Would it be okay to send a website or something, like a link or something like that?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, thank you.
It usually only takes Ivan a couple of days. Well, sorry, I had a noisy car go by.
Okay.
It usually only takes them like 5 days max to get stuff out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Catherine. We'll hope to see you next week as well. And I'll tune in tomorrow for Tech Talk. That's going to be an
Excellent.
exciting
See you
topic.
tomorrow. Okay. Bye-bye.
Oh, see you. Oh,
Bye,
and
Thomas.
all right, Thomas, take care. And of course, on Monday, Teresa, if I believe correctly, Sherry's got her mastermind at, was it 1 o'clock or?
Yeah, that's correct. 1 o'clock.
Okay. And is it the same structure, $35 for members, and was it $75 for non-members?
It's 25 for members and then 75 for non-members. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for the correction on that. And of course, lastly, we got Coffee with Ivan on Monday at 9:30. Be sure to tune in and check out Ivan, see what he's got going there. And by the way, Teresa, is Ivan back yet?
He just got home. He's eating.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. I'm sure he's going to enjoy editing this video with all the little nuggets. Just like, hold on, I got to pause for a minute. I got to think about what he just said.
Yeah, he'll be like, okay, Teresa, you get on that.
All right. And of course, for Aiden, we hope to see you tomorrow if you're free to join. Love seeing you for the first time, and we'll have to see you again next week as well.
Yeah, I'll try to make it next week as well. I'm not doing anything in COVID, so yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and good luck in your adventures of finding what to put your money into.
Yeah, like that's why I'm doing the auction. I'm doing the auction to generate some income because, with Grace Gallery being out of commission for all this time,
But yeah,
since December 26th, it's taken a real toll. So,
Yeah, pretty
if
rough.
you're looking at buying local and you're looking at supporting local business and stuff like that, just make sure you go to my Facebook page, Grace Gallery -G+G, and participate in the auction. Every little bit counts.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. On that note, I know it's a little bit over time, but it was a really good session. That's why it just had to go a few minutes longer.